Grieving families of the 7 students killed at the Mother Francisca International Bilingual College in Kumba on October 24 want their murderers to face the law. They have made clear their mind to the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph John Gute, today in Kumba, who presided over an official ceremony in honor of the 7 fallen students. As Americans await results of the 10th presidential elections, our newsroom takes special interest in existing relations between Yaoundé and Washington based on the political affiliation of past U.S. presidents. Professor Evans Golengole will be telling us in this newscast whether Cameroon's diplomatic ties with the U.S. could change should a Democrat take over from the Republican incumbent, Donald Trump. And in sports, we tell you how club officials are fuming over the conflict existing between Fecafoot and the Professional Football League. They complained that the clash of the 2 giants is having a toll on them and players who have been robbed of football from the pitch. Those are top stories. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. You're watching the Primetime Newscast on STV. The Prime Minister, Head of Government, has today transmitted the condolences of the Head of State President Paul Biya to grieving families of the 7 students killed at the Mother Francisca Bilingual International College in Kumba. Chief Dr. Joseph John Gute was in Kumba today, where he represented the Head of State at an official funeral ceremony in honor of the 7 children. As Katrin Kone tells us, grieving families want the murderers of the children brought to book and for lasting peace to return to the northwest and southwest regions.
It was an atmosphere pregnant with emotions of sorrow, grief, consternation, regret, as hundreds of inhabitants of Kumba, chief town of the Mema Division Southwest region, gathered to welcome the Prime Minister and Head of Government Joseph John Gute and his entourage for the funeral ceremony of the 7 children gruesomely killed at Mother Francisca International Bilingual Academy on October 24, 2020. Representing the Head of State, the Prime Minister says the presidential couple expressed their deep compassion to the bereaved families.
Asked me to come here with the governor of the Southwest region, along with many members of government, to console with the parents of the young persons who were killed, the young students who were killed, and also to visit those who were injured in hospital. Madame Chantal Biya, our First Lady, also sent gifts and assistance to those families. The President of the Republic, who is a father and a grandfather, is extremely saddened by what happened here, and we are all, as parents, also touched by it, and he's asked me to come and give his solidarity with the people of Kumba and with the people of the Southwest and Northwest regions who have been going through a lot of adversity throughout these years. We are hopeful that this will come to an end very soon, and in any case the perpetrators of this odious act will be apprehended and brought before justice. Thank you very much.
The corpses of the students were blessed and covered with the blood of Jesus by inter-religious leaders who equally condemned the Kumba carnage and several other barbaric acts ongoing in the northwest and southwest region. At the end of the requiem mass, various bereaved families scattered away their corpses for burial. The funeral ceremony was attended by traditional rulers like His Royal Highness von Mukete IV Ekoko, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Minister of Secondary and Basic Education, Minister of Public Health, Minister of Women Empowerment and Family, Minister of Social Affairs, DOs, SDOs, governors, and the entire population of Kumba. Victory Kamibon Ngameni, Jennifer Anankim, Princess Ngemene, Cheo Thurman Changwi, Zakami Rema, Shinya Cindy, and Gwane Mungeremi have left a big vacuum in the hearts of family members, friends, and the entire nation as unidentified gunmen brutally took away their lives while they were seeking for education.
And in line with the October 24 massacre in Kumba, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has issued a statement. The statement from Matthias Knapp, the UN resident coordinator in Cameroon, says that the humanitarian coordinator in Cameroon condemns the repeated attacks on children, teachers, and educational facilities in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, after citing various cases of kidnapped, torture, as well as killings of students and teachers in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. The resident coordinator described the acts as abhorrent and unacceptable. Mr. Knapp insisted that education is a fundamental right and children should not be prevented from exercising their right to school. That education should be a place of safety and learning and not one where children are in fear. Also, the resident UN coordinator of humanitarian affairs has reiterated the United Nations call for all armed groups to abide by their obligations under international humanitarian law to refrain from any attacks against children and other civilians, and also ensure that schools and other educational facilities as well as teachers are not subjected to violence or threats in any way. Americans continue to await the results of the presidential elections as the final vote of the presidential poll is being awaited, with all eyes now on few battleground states where partial results are close and which may determine victory for either incumbent Republicans Donald Trump or Democrat Joe Biden. Trump has called for a recount of votes in some states, vowing to contest the elections at the Supreme Court. Details with our partners of the VOA.
In New York, a demand to count every vote as the nation continues to wait for news of a victor. People around the country are feeling anxious, including in the battleground state of Pennsylvania.
Hopefully it ends peacefully, trying to stay positive.
Ballots are still being counted in a handful of key states, but after Joe Biden was declared the winner of Michigan and Wisconsin, two states that President Trump won 4 years ago, Biden said he's confident that he'll get the 270 electoral college votes, the minimal needed to win.
I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners.
Georgia, a traditionally Republican state, is one of the battlegrounds where Biden's stronger support from voters in cities and suburbs could end up delivering him a victory. With the count still underway, President Trump tweeted Wednesday that he is claiming victory in Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, and Michigan, an assertion Twitter labeled as misleading. The Trump campaign is launching legal challenges to stop ballot counting in Michigan and Pennsylvania, saying Republicans did not have adequate access to observe the process.
We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list.
Trump is also demanding a recount in Wisconsin, where margins are slim.
Either candidate in a case is free to ask for a recount when the margin is less than 1%. And so he can simply ask for it. Historically, though, recounts rarely, if ever, differ from the original count. And so it's not likely that's going to generate the outcome that he's looking for.
Hundreds of Trump supporters protested at a ballot counting facility in Phoenix, Arizona on Wednesday night, claiming some votes haven't been properly tallied. The final result in Arizona and other states could potentially be decided in court.
If there is any litigation contesting the counting of ballots, the rejection of absentee ballots, the extension of time for absentee ballots, I have no doubt that whoever loses in that litigation probably will be prepared to litigate it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Which means finding out who won could take days or even weeks. Patsy Vida Huswara, VOA News at the White House.
Now, relations between Cameroon and the United States have remained strong for 60 years, despite timid tensions between the two countries over some issues. As the world awaits the next U.S. president, our newsroom took keen interest on whether this relation has been affected by the political ideology of the UN leader in charge, whether Republican or Democrat. Our reporter Josephine Binzi spoke with Professor Elvis Ngole, political scientist and expert on international relations matters, who digs into this issue. Her report.
The bilateral relations between the United States and Cameroon will have no symbolic changes as both countries share a common ground of peace. However, a democratic U.S. president may pay more accent to certain insecurity challenges in the country.
The ideology of the Democratic Party will want to make sure that they ensure that Cameroon is at peace. They will promote peace in Cameroon. They will promote the unity of Cameroon. They will promote the economic development of Cameroon. They will promote internal stability of Cameroon institutions, and they will promote democracy and so forth and so on, and the freedoms. This is what they will promote humanitarian activities, because that is the ideology of the Democratic Party. The Democratic American president, they are more likely to support the unity, the peace, the stability, and the economic development programs of Cameroon.
In foreign policy and diplomacy, the Democratic and Republican parties have different internal matrix and dynamics peculiar to their party's vision.
The Republican Party generally furthers and promotes a kind of foreign policy which is based on security matters, furthering economic investments of American companies, furthering external trade, and promoting import and export. These are the kinds of things that the Republican Party is interested in mostly. And for the Democrats, the Democratic Party tends to place its accent on helping poor people in poor countries, trying to get countries out of underdevelopment, trying to help countries to internally have peace in their governance processes, promoting human rights and matters of justice.
Cameroon will, however, benefit from relations without conflict, irrespective of which U.S. president is in power, to engage in profitable agreements.
International relations, or relations between states, independent states, are driven by the interests. Penchant have a tendency, given their ideology, given the fact that in American internal dynamics, the majority, 12% of the population of America is black, which means there are people who come from Africa. The Democrats will always have that soft heart and that soft feeling for Africa, because internally the Democratic Party has a strength in the Black American Party, Black Americans in the United States.
Given that the principles and objectives of parties go beyond foreign policies, thus, the party is simply an ideological factor that serves as a yardstick for the leader of the country to manage the policies in such a way that enable all diplomatic relations achieve their interests. Thus, it is fair to call U.S.-Cameroon relations as diplomatic or relations without conflict.
From the U.S. presidential elections, the resignation of former President Amadou Ahidjo on November 4, 1982 triggered an atmosphere of anxiety and admiration, but also uncertainty as to what the future held for Cameroonians. In the following report, the president of the National Communication Council, Peter Esoka, who was out of the country at that time, comes back to the moments following the announcement of the resignation of former President Amadou Ahidjo and how the country witnessed the transition to incumbent President Paul Biya.
After President Amadou Ahidjo's visit to the United States earlier that year, it was with astonishment that the veteran journalist Peter Esoka received news of his resignation on November 4, 1982 in the United States, where he was met with the news. He says,
"Actually, it was quite a surprise. First of all, President Ahidjo visited the United States of America earlier that year, and we all joyfully went to Washington, D.C. to give him a rousing welcome. There was no inkling whatsoever that any such would happen by the end of the year. However, it was a relatively welcome surprise because it was almost like the first of its kind of heads of state of that generation to resign and give over power willingly without fighting for it. I think something that made us proud as Cameroonians, and we took ourselves as an example to other countries who were still having some long-term dictators ruling the country. So we just said, bravo, something good is happening.
Still trying to digest this news and hoping for better and positive upcomings, 38 years on, the National Communication Council President Peter Nsoesie keeps these hopes high despite the up and down moments faced in the country.
Definitely they cannot be the same over time. We've had ups and down moments. We've had crisis upon crisis. The same head of state is still there and trying to manage things out. He's receiving a lot of opposition too, but I think he's a man of some kind of status, and so he has kept his calm, I would like to say, although again, if change comes, why not? We are a people, a progressive people, and I want to believe that we would need things to evolve positively.
38 years on, the weight on a positive evolution of things continues to loom in the horizon.
A probe into the forestry sector has revealed that 38.5 billion francs CFA has not been declared by forestry companies between 2018 and 2019 in Cameroon. The report revealed by the Ministry of Finance is aimed at improving the performance of forest revenues in the country. Details with Christelle Asexwele.
Following the October 2020 report from the Ministry of Finance on improving the performance of forestry revenues in Cameroon, it is observed that nearly 30 forestry companies have been identified at risk of a reduction in their turnover declaration for the 2018-2019 financial years, making the volume of undeclared activities in view of their turnover reach 11.4 billion in 2018 and 16.7 billion in 2019. Making a total of 27.8 billion francs CFA. This same observation is made with regard to the non-repayment of the annual forest royalty. This risk is understood by comparing the forest royalty paid by holders of operating permits and the forest royalty contained in their financial offers, according to the same report. From this calculation, it is possible to identify 75 forestry companies potentially at risk of the non-repayment of forest royalty over the 2018 and 2019 financial years. This document also contains the unpaid forest royalty of 5.2 billion in 2018 and 5.5 billion in 2019, making a cumulative loan of 10.7 billion francs CFA over the 2 years, which when summed up amounts to a total of 38.5 billion unreported turnover distracted from the tax authorities between 2018 and 2019, as stated in the report of the Ministry of Finance. A situation which calls on the government to take more action in the fight against tax incivism in the forest sector in order to systematically dismantle companies that will try to flee from the obligation to pay tax.
At a time when some countries in Europe have gone in for re-confinement due to phase 2 of COVID-19, concerns have been raised in Cameroon over a resurgence of the virus. The respect of COVID-19 preventive measures is fast losing steam in many schools across the country. In the economic capital, Douala, apart from the washing of hands, physical distancing and the wearing of masks is almost absent. Details in this report.
Following the October 2020 report from the Ministry of Finance on improving the performance of forestry revenues in Cameroon, it is observed that nearly 30 forestry companies have been identified at risk of a reduction in
the compulsory wearing of face masks, respect of social distancing in classrooms, amongst other COVID-19 barrier measures, is gradually disappearing in some schools in Douala. Contrary to what the principals say, students and pupils could be spotted on campus without face masks.
Depuis la rentrée,
since the resumption of schools, we continue in respecting COVID-19 barrier measures instituted by the government. We are not respecting because the government says we should, but because of our security. Since they said age people are more vulnerable to the pandemic, I'm obliged to put all the measures so that the younger people won't contaminate me with the health crisis.
Donc, je respecte ces mesures barrières à mon niveau.
He says even though some measures are difficult to implement, the washing of hands is obligatory.
Les mesures que nous continuons à maintenir, c'est toujours le lavage des mains. Le lavage des mains est toujours...
One of the measures we've maintained is the washing of hands. Even if a child tells us he or she has washed their hands at home, they are obliged to wash again in school. Even parents will bring their children to school, wash their hands as well.
C'est comme ça que nous avons pris, n'est-ce pas, ces mesures-là ici. Ensuite,
they, however, follow the disinfection exercise of classrooms and the entire school campus every Sunday in order to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 pandemic.
The price of eggs in markets across the economic capital Douala is having a spillover effect on roadside cafes and even households. Our reporter Ladonette Oni caught up with some cafe operators in the city who lament that business is going down due to this change. Her report.
This inhabitant, like some Cameroonians, is forced to change his breakfast routine due to the increase in the price of eggs.
I'm very surprised to see that the eggs that people have been selling 50 francs for one, it's now jumped from 50 francs to 150 francs. I don't know. And where there are, I think 1 year ago, people were mashing eggs all over the country. And see where you are. I'm forced to eat bread and soup instead of eating bread and egg. I'm very hungry. You don't say that the earth is shared. That's what they say. There's just one share. Full stop. I don't know why. I don't know why they say there's just one share. I'm always supporting now. You are managing, but I cannot eat again. I cannot eat anymore until the eggs will go down to 50 francs. Then I'll eat again.
Eggs, which were normally sold at 1,600 francs a crate, has increased to over 2,500 francs. A situation which has spoiled business for cafe owners.
Right now we are facing a loss. This is because if you are to count what we spend on ingredients, we are at loss. When we come to sell, I sell fried eggs. I can sell at 200 francs, 150 francs. To be able to get profit, because I use gas, oil and everything. In order to get profit, I sell at 250 francs. That's how we've been suffering.
Despite this increase, some cafe owners still manage to sell at the normal rate, that is 100 francs for boiled eggs and 150 francs for fried eggs.
The price hasn't changed. We sell eggs for spaghetti at this cafe for 150 francs, and we don't lose that much. Other small things cover up for our loss. We sell at the same price. Even though it's expensive, we still sell at the same price. I don't know about those increasing their price.
Small businesses are not the only sector affected, as some households can barely consume this protein-rich product.
In sports, the bitter conflict between the Cameroon Football Federation, FECAFOOT, and the Professional Football League has not only kept players off the pitch for way too long, but has also disrupted the annual programs of many football clubs. Club officials want the conflicting parties to put the interest of the main actors into account before their selfish desires. Details with Josephine Binzi.
Based on Fecafoot's Executive Committee's recent decision to withdraw the pass from the Cameroon's Professional Football League and its long-standing rivalry, the adage too, the grass suffers the effect of two warring elephants, best describes players amidst the Fecafoot and LFPC saga.
Bon, en ce qui concerne la guerre entre la Fecafoot et la LFPC.
What's happening now between the country's FA and the Cameroon's Professional League is heartbreaking as it is affecting the players the most. I really wish that they find a common ground of understanding for the advancement of Cameroon football. Coach Nasser Joko, technical director of Kaji Sports Academy, says they suffer enormous uncertainty, giving certain players may be laid aside to abide to the new rules adopted by the sports governing body.
Oui, la bataille LFPC Fecafoot qui fait déjà pas mal de temps déjà.
The battle between the FA and the LFPC is putting us in a tight corner. We who are actors on ground, including players and trainers, are suffering enormously. They should find a common ground of understanding. They should find a common ground of understanding to promote young talents coming up. And this has left us in suspense because we don't know the players we're supposed to work with and equally evaluate the work done. After months of no competition, Sunday saw Panther Day against Coton Sport of Garoua in Yaoundé. This new development may affect players participating in the competition without licenses, as well as the psychology of those who have anticipated a new sports season without sports or blemishes.
And that does it for the Primetime Newscast on STV. Thank you very much for watching. Programs continue on STV. Have a good night.